Hey, welcome back to What's Working Now. This is the Entrepreneur's Edge series. This is a series where I, Katie, am going to be coaching you on how to maintain or get an edge as an entrepreneur. We're going to be talking about mindsets, skill sets, and tool sets that you need to be able to do that. Topics might include things like a CEO mindset, company culture, vision, team building, partnerships, working with your spouse, time management, and yes, work-life integration. Today, we are talking about navigating conflict in business partnerships. Specifically, I see individuals who struggle with this the most when the partner is somebody they really care about, whether it is a family member, a parent, a spouse, a good friend. And often it is good, well-meaning individuals who really struggle to navigate conflict in a business partnership. And it's something I've been really fortunate to help incredible individuals navigate. So today I'm going to walk you through what it looks like to navigate conflict in a business partnership. And in fact, this episode is a two-part series because I want to go down into the details with you. So today we are talking about the actual conversation when you are navigating conflict. And next week we will talk about part two, which is your action plan. How can this be a united action plan? Okay. The first thing that we need to address in navigating a tumultuous or difficult conflict in your business partnership, the first thing is you need to check in with yourself. Yeah, you, the entrepreneur. If you want to be in a position of strength, you need to come to this conversation in a neutral place. There will be a time and place where it may make sense to have a very clear opinion and perspective. But in the beginning, you need to start out neutral, okay? You let go of the right, wrong, who's right and who's wrong. If you come into the conversation with that, you will continue to point the finger at each other and blame. So first, you almost need to be like an investigator, and you need to specifically come and learn the other person's perspective. Now, you might be saying what my client Frank said to me, which was, but Katie, if I do this, and I just started asking him questions about what he thinks we need to do or his perspective, he's just going to assume then that he's right and I'm wrong and that I'm now agreeing with his perspective. You see, this is the beginning and the core component to why you're having conflict in the first place. Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand before seeking to be understood. And when you can understand how to actually be in a neutral place. So that means you have to let go of what your perspective is, because what we need to do, effectively what we need to do is we need to go into their world. We need to understand their perspective and then therefore potentially discover the gaps in their understanding, or maybe the flaws in their understanding, or maybe that they know something that you don't know. And we need to find out what that information is. And if you go in believing that you're right, you will immediately go in defended. And that's what needs to be left out of the conversation for this conversation. Okay, so the first is you need to be neutral coming into the conversation. It can be difficult. You know who's really neutral by nature is a 3, 4, 5-year-old. Isn't it incredible when you're around a child how they leave behind judgment? They're not going to shame you or guilt you. They're just wildly curious. The good news is you were once a 3, 4, 5-year-old. You know what that's like. So bring that curiosity to this conversation. I want you to be curious and let go of blame, finger pointing, judgment. That all needs to stay out of this conversation for now. Again, there may come a time when that's necessary. For this conversation, I want you to be neutral. The second is we need to frame the conversation. Why are you having the conversation? And maybe it's something like, we have talked about our business partnership now and what that looks like for 12 months, and we can't seem to come to an agreement. And I'm realizing I need to better understand your perspective and your area of the business. Or I need to, we need to, I'm trying to think of a really specific example. Frame up the conversation. Maybe the frame looks something like this. The reason we're talking is, and then state what is the reason that we're talking. Now, the reason you need to do this is because if you just start running in and asking all the questions that you have, it's human nature to be really, really defensive because they don't know your intention. Why are we having this conversation? So people will be very, very guarded and not honest. We need them to be open and honest with you. So that means bringing your intention and the reason for having the conversation, bring it right up front. So the reason we need to talk is I feel like I've noticed you've canceled a lot of the leadership meetings and you're not coming, and I want to better understand what's happening for you. So stating what is the reason behind the conversation, what's the intention? The third is you need to listen from a place of curiosity. And I'm going to give you a great list of curiosity-based questions. Again, they're coming from a neutral place. And so you would say things like, that's interesting. Tell me more. Can you elaborate on that? When you say X, what does that mean to you? That's interesting. How did you come to that conclusion? I'd love to hear more. Tell me about it. What's your perspective on this? How does that relate to your experience? What else can you share about that conversation you had with the team member? What are your thoughts on what he shared? That's super interesting. Can you expand on it? Why do you think that is? Now, there is an art to this, and hopefully, as you listened to me ask these questions, you kind of picked up on the art piece, which is you could ask any one of those same questions, but rooted in judgment and disagreeing. You need to pay attention to your tonality. You actually need to have come to a neutral place within you to be able to genuinely, authentically ask these questions from a real neutral place. So that's why we started in the beginning with you have to be neutral, actually. Quick question for you. What would happen in your business and life if you could show up powerfully? As a coach to high-performing entrepreneurs, I help intelligent people like you do just that. And if you want to be inspired by people who are getting more done in 90 days than most people do all year, I'm going to invite you to go check out my case studies. The website is now.katierichardsson.com/case study. And the cool thing is we've got so many case studies there. You can find an entrepreneur who's just like you. I've also got a link for you down in the show notes. Okay, back to the show. So, what are you seeing? What are you hearing as I am walking you through how to have and navigate conflict in your business partnership? You know, I mentioned Frank earlier. He has a really incredible story. He'd been business partners with this guy, John, for years. And they had multiple businesses where their partnership was slightly different depending on the business. And in one of the businesses for 18 months, they could not agree on John's role. Frank was clearly in charge in that business. He was the CEO. And so for 18 months, they would have conversations, not come to an agreement, and kick the can down the road. And when I asked John what this was doing for him, he said, you know, I'm in my mid-40s. I feel like I'm in my 60s. It's aging me. I'm continually stressed. It's always on my mind, in the back of my mind. And it's there when I go to bed. It's there when I wake up. So it was creating a lot of stress. Frank and John were friends. They were family friends, and they cared about each other. And Frank and John had very strong opinions about what needed to happen in the business. Frank was understandably frustrated. He felt like the performance wasn't quite there in this area of the business, and it had him scratching his head because John was a very smart, capable individual, couldn't understand why he wasn't performing at the level he knew he was capable of in this business. And so to try and kind of push him to a decision, he was removing compensation as a way to kind of push him and motivate him into performance. And it was sad because it was affecting John personally and his family. So over a couple weeks, I did what I'm just teaching you. And I showed up with each separately and walked them through this framework so I could better understand Frank. And then separately, I went through and I went and did the same thing with John, and I better understood John. What's so fascinating is if you just do that with somebody, with your business partner, everybody in the world just wants to be heard and seen. So what you do by showing up in this way, being neutral, framing the conversation, actually listening from this place of curiosity, when you do just that, the other person sets down their walls. They, in a sense, got something they want and need from the world. They just got it from you. They become way more reasonable and collaborative, even though we haven't even finished the other half of this process, right? Just these first 3 steps will help you take somebody who's been very unreasonable and is not listening by you extending it to them first, and you listen to them first. They then become curious about you and they want to hear and know your perspective. But you have to stay really neutral and listening and just seeking to understand them in the conversation. But there will come this point where they start to flip it and they say, what do you think? What's your perspective on that? What would you have done in this situation, right? So just by me listening to each of them, they then individually became much more reasonable. So once I showed them this framework, they were able to, in the course of weeks, take something that was creating tremendous stress, friction, aging each of them, keeping them up at night. And in 3 weeks, using the rest of this framework, they came to an agreement. And the thing that was so beautiful is, Frank said, 1, I can't believe how quickly we were able to come to an agreement. But 2, he couldn't believe how well John was performing. And that's the other piece of this. And I'm excited to go into this in part 2 and share with you how to not just get someone to agree with you, but it becomes what they want. And then they are mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, they are invested in executing on the plan the same way that you are. And you have a really clear agreement and both parties are committed. So that is the first part of how to navigate conflict in business partnerships. And I just have to say, I love coaching people, specifically in business partnerships. I have some clients who I work with the CEO and the COO, and that's been a really powerful arrangement. I speak with the CEO every week, the COO every week. You know, she has really specific things on the team and getting the team to perform better and what that looks like. And the CEO has questions on vision and long-term plan. So it's really cool because I can catch where maybe they are not effectively communicating between each other. And we've been working together for a year and it's created tremendous growth. It's helped them build A-player team, and they're now getting ready to scale a whole new vertical in their business and probably triple their business within a matter of a couple of years. So that's really cool. I also even have spouses that I work with where the husband and wife work together in the business, and maybe something has shifted and it is becoming really tumultuous, dysfunctional, riddled with friction and difficulty. And it maybe even has gotten to the point where every conversation is just, you're at each other's throat. And it's so disappointing and frustrating and bewildering. So I have married couples building significant businesses, and I work with each individual separately. And it's been amazing to see not just how that is affecting the business and it is improving their prospecting, because when you're prospecting together, but there's conflict there, good luck. So we really improved the prospecting process and increased their conversion to high-end clients, and just significantly improved the personal dreams and desires for them as a couple. And so it becomes this beautiful virtuous cycle that's continually spiraling upwards. And if you want more information on how you could get my help in a program that I have, go to now.katierichardsson.com/case study. Just realizing I don't know that I have a case study on that landing page, but you just heard them here. I think Frank is definitely on that page. So go check out those case studies. And if you want to have a conversation with me about your specific business and circumstances and, kind of the unique situation that you find yourself in, and come to understand if maybe you and I are a fit to potentially work together, on the case study page, if you click the button, it will take you to the application. And the application, my team takes a look at it. If you're a fit, they will schedule a call between me and you, and we can go into the details of your situation in your business and what it would look like to participate in one of my programs, whether that is through the support of my team and videos or working with me directly. We have multiple options. So I love helping people navigate conflict. I have worked for years with my husband, and we built our first business together, and I learned so many things in that. We work together now, and it's something I think is potentially your most powerful business partnership is with a spouse. And it is so difficult when you don't understand these things. So I'm, if you can't tell, I'm super passionate about teaching people these principles that then empower you to be this united front. It's really exciting what happens when you're no longer feeling attacked and defensive, and you can really feel like he's got my back, I have his back, and we're working together. We are a united front, and the team sees you that way as well. It's really powerful. I had a client who, she and her husband were building a business together, and come to find out there was just all of this frustration, resentment, but then hiding those things in front of the team, even not agreeing on the long-term vision. They both had a vision of exiting the company within 12 to 18 months at a certain price, but how they were going to get there, they had come to different conclusions. And so they were kind of not a united front, actively not working together and executing on different plans. And I said, how's that going? Like, how do you think that's impacting the team? And she very confidently told me, oh, they don't know. And I was like, that is not true, not true at all. So we worked together, actually just me and her. We didn't even have to work with her husband, and she and I worked together, and I showed her what needed to happen so that she and he could be this united front. It was really incredible to watch just how much that impacted the growth of the company as she learned these principles and started implementing them just herself. So there's a lot that is possible for you when you understand these principles. I love teaching them to incredible individuals like you, because I feel like your business is a powerful vehicle for you to go and execute on your calling, your mission, and ultimately to become the man, the woman that God created you to be. And business is a powerful vehicle for doing that. So if that is exciting and interesting to you, you can actually go straight to the application, now.katierichardsson.com/apply, I think. Send my team an email, support@katierichardsson.com, and we can make sure you get that link. Okay, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening to the What's Working Now podcast. If you found today's episode to be interesting, be sure to share this with a friend. And if you are looking to level up your organization as a CEO, I'm going to invite you to join the Now newsletter. This is a weekly newsletter. I send it out on Fridays. I tell personal stories, talk about what it's like to build a significant business while raising a family, homeschooling kids. And I even share case studies, very timely, relevant situations where I go into detail how I am helping entrepreneurs navigate, lead, and build incredible organizations. You can get all of that behind the scenes information and more inside the Now newsletter. I've got a link to it right now in the show notes, and I will see you in the next episode.